Fandoms are taking over Hollywood. In fact, you could argue that they already have, what with huge franchises and brands dominating the box office every year as studios try to transform the passion these fans have into money dollar bills and endless sequels. While that approach has decidedly worked in an era where the fan response is more vocal than ever before and everyone needs to have a take on everything, myself included, it's meant that more movies are hounded and overshadowed by debates surrounding their quality. Of course, films in general don't help themselves either, whether they're major blockbuster tentpoles trying to please everyone and inevitably pleasing barely anyone, or ambitious genre films that were marketed terribly, leading to skewed expectations. There have been plenty of releases over the past year that have promised one thing and then delivered another, splitting audiences right down the middle. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most divisive movies of 2018. Number 10. Venom. While it might not be the best superhero film of the year, Venom is certainly the weirdest. Before release, there were rumours that the project was going to be an R-rated horror, with the titular symbiote struggling as a troubled anti-hero. The trailers played this up as well, focusing on the body horror of Eddie Brock's transformation and keeping the alien mostly in the shadows. That's not what the end result was at all though, and it was all the better for it. Instead, Venom's high points came from Tom Hardy's utterly out-there performance as both halves of the superhero, creating this weird buddy cop dynamic that played out exclusively in his mind. Every scene where Eddie and Venom were just pissing about was absolute gold, and it's just a shame that that same energy and humour didn't make its way over to Riz Ahmed's villain or Michelle Williams' boring love interest. This divide very clearly made for a movie torn between two identities, and audiences were equally split down the middle on whether what they were watching was a train wreck or a mad spark of creative genius. Number 9. First Man. While there was controversy surrounding First Man before it even came out concerning the American flag, or perhaps more pressingly, the lack thereof, during Damien Chazelle's depiction of the moon landing, it was something far more encompassing that led it to being heralded as either the best or worst film of the year. First Man was negatively compared to Christopher Nolan's blockbusters, viewed by some as lacking in emotion and ultimately a cold exercise in charting NASA's space process rather than an exploration of human drama. Everyone agreed that Ryan Gosling's Armstrong came alive during the tense, wondrous space set pieces, but that he fell a bit flat on Earth. Others thought that divide was pretty much the entire point of the whole story though. The film wasn't intended to depict Armstrong as an all-American hero, but rather a real person who struggled in his position as a family man and excelled as an explorer and pilot. At least both sides could agree on one thing, that space is freaking scary and we should never ever go there again. Number 8. Annihilation. One of the most intriguing movies to drop in the first half of the year, the debacle surrounding Annihilation's release and the fallout between the director and the distributor led many to wonder just what all the fuss was about. Throw in the fact that said director was sci-fi hero Alex Garland, and everyone was ready to stick it to the dumb producers who clearly didn't understand the piece of art they had on their hands. When it came out though, it became apparent why the producers weren't throwing themselves to promote the film. It was pissing weird as hell. From mutant bears that mimic the voices of humans to an abstract ending that would make even 2001 blush, the film wasn't a tight, tense thriller like Ex Machina, but rather an experimental, interpretation-heavy sci-fi in the classic sense. It was eclectic, but it was daring and ambitious, even if not every little element came together. It's the kind of film that's undoubtedly going to become a cult favorite in a few years, and those movies are only born out of so many audiences hating them at first release. Number 7. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. The Crimes of Grindelwald had a lot to accomplish in one single movie. The original Fantastic Beasts did a great job of reintroducing audiences to the wizarding world, but it was a surprisingly self-contained affair, not really crossing over too much with the mainline Harry Potter flicks, and not really justifying the need for 12 more movies or however many old JK was writing at the time. Grindelwald took on the challenge of accomplishing all this groundwork though, while at the same time attempting to be a worthy, entertaining sequel in its own right. For Harry Potter fans, it was great to see the relationship between two of the mythology's most important wizards finally begin to get its due on screen, while fans of the first Fantastic Beasts still got to follow the adventures of floppy-haired Newt Scamander. However, the divide between these two separate identities meant that not all fans were pleased with the compromise the filmmakers came to. Throw in a last-minute twist that everyone's still trying to process, and the future of Fantastic Beasts is in a precarious, if endlessly interesting, position. Number 6. Solo, a Star Wars story. It's a strange world to be in where a Star Wars movie bombs at the box office. After 3 consecutive movies that grossed over $1 billion each, Solo, a Star Wars story's disappointing reception was admittedly seen coming a mile off. Not only was the production troubled and the project itself seen as a story that didn't need to be told, the new May release date gave it virtually no breathing room following The Last Jedi and Disney's own Infinity War, which dropped a few weeks before. While some fans cheered its failure, there were just as many who stepped up to defend the spin-off for what it was, a hugely fun summer blockbuster. Sure, it might not have been a story that needed to be told, but then really, what is? But its action-packed plot closer to a space western than Star Wars has ever been before, and cast of characters more than justified its existence. Whichever side of the fence you fall on though, Solo marked an end of an era and has forced Disney and Lucasfilm to radically reassess its Star Wars slate moving forward. Number 5. Suspiria. Even from its haunting, dialogue-free trailer, you knew Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria was going to be a difficult sell. Not only was it a reboot of a horror classic that was aiming to completely invert everything that made the original so iconic, but it was fully embracing its art house sensibilities, casting Tilda Swinton in not 1, not 2, but 3 different roles, and refusing to mask its indulgences with a 2.5-hour runtime, which is 2 hours longer than any film needs to be. Some praised it as being one of the best movies of the year, while others found it meandering, boring, and up its own bottom. Those critics aren't entirely wrong either. Suspiria is obsessed with itself, but it has the scares, performances, and overall craft to back it up. Still, the end result is very clearly not for everyone, especially if you hold the original close to your heart, but it does set the bar for how all remakes should be tackled in the future. Number 4. You Were Never Really Here. Even when she's trying her hand at mainstream-ish movies, director Lynn Ramsey is always divisive. Her lyrical style of filmmaking prioritizes abstract and metaphorical storytelling rather than regular, straightforward plotting, which can sometimes make her films feel a little bit like homework, well, if you're not enraptured by the character's world of visuals anyway. You Were Never Really Here, based on the novel of the same name, is no different, with a story of Joaquin Phoenix's Joe's attempt to rescue a politician's daughter being at once simple, yet deceptively opaque. Much of the background of the book has been ripped out or reshaped, to the point where you only get brief glimpses of Joe's backstory and are forced to piece it together yourself. Likewise, while the premise promises a hulking Phoenix dishing out violent retribution on a bunch of terrible people, there's no real catharsis to the violence, and the destruction of these villains can never truly be reveled in. Of course, that's entirely the point, but where some audiences embrace this style of storytelling, others view it as wholly unsatisfying. I'm looking at you, Scott Tilford, for that. Number 3. Bohemian Rhapsody. Considering the amount of movies on this list which came preloaded with huge, passionate fan bases ready to either embrace or reject releases at a moment's notice, it's a little surprising that Bohemian Rhapsody became more controversial than almost all of them. A surprise box office smash, especially considering the bad PR stemming from the troubled production. The Queen biopic delighted some with its light-hearted romp through the band's successes, culminating in a thrilling performance at Live Aid, but others lamented the fact the film missed the mark when it came to exploring Freddie Mercury in particular. That was bad enough, but it was more the way the real history was played around with to create a cleaner, tighter film story with an obvious beginning and end which caught the most flack. That shouldn't have been surprising considering the rest of the band's sway over the creative decisions and original actor Sacha Baron Cohen leaving due to the script, but it still made for a final product that many felt missed the mark. Number 2. Mandy. Easily one of the biggest indie darlings of the year, Mandy's embracement of cult horror and Cajun excess, all set against lush, LSD-inspired visuals, made it instantly memorable. Before release, there were plenty of reviews and reactions praising the film for daring to be different, unafraid to be both bold and pulpy in the way it presented this story about cult leaders and chainsaw battles with demon bikers. The divide came, however, in the way the film was clearly aiming to be the very definition of a cult movie. Every element feels carefully planned and executed to attract a specific audience, potentially losing the manic energy and rough around the edges appeal that makes so many flawed cult favorites endearing in the first place. As a result, while it has everything going for it on the surface, the calculatedness of it all made some audiences resent the finished product for trying too hard. Not that I would know anything about that, of course. Some could happily look past that and enjoy the fact that this is ostensibly a movie where Nick Cage sniffs drugs off a giant axe and beheads Hellraiser-esque baddies. But if you don't buy into that, then there's no joy to be found in the ballsy scenes. Number 1. Hereditary. The rise of art house horror over the course of the 2010s has led to a string of horror movies that general audiences just can't seem to agree on. From the likes of The Babadook to The Vivitch, which yet is its official title, these are flicks that utilize all the conventions of mainstream horror but take decidedly more daring approaches to storytelling. Initially, Hereditary's plot is extremely similar to these other movies, essentially about the devolution of a family after the death of their young daughter. Their grief is heightened by potentially supernatural goings-on, with each character suffering visions and being tormented by ghostly apparitions. Where other critically acclaimed movies of its ilk, like the aforementioned Babadook or It Comes at Night, used a horror plot to drive home statements on inherently human turmoil, Hereditary instead doubles down on its supernatural aspects. Offering a straightforward explanation for everything, it's revealed that there is in fact a sinister force to blame. It's not happening in someone's head, it's not a direct metaphor for something else, it's literally the king of hell causing untold terror on these people. Understandably, audiences either embraced this revelation in the third act or felt like it betrayed the previous hour of tight, ambiguous human drama.